Hello, everybody, and welcome to lesson 19 of class. Does logic make you justify truth? Well, let's get into it, shall we? So, what is truth? Well, truth is based upon rational things that can be made to fit into one's reality that become real for them. In other words, 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's hard logic with mathematics. It's the truth. 1 plus 1 equals 2. If I said 1 plus 1 equals 3, you would ask how, or say, no, it doesn't, because your mind is already closed off. So therefore, once I explain, yeah, if you take a male and a female and they have a baby, 1 plus 1 would equal 3. Now your mind would start to open up a little bit and you'll be able to justify the truth in the statement in which that I just stated. Now let's go a little bit further. When you use logic to justify truth, that is when you leave room for creativity, which most do not understand. So, going back to our last example, 1 plus 1 equals 2 versus 1 plus 1 equals 3, without certain premises or without a premise, there won't be a conclusion. So, if you don't know what the premise is and you're just jumping the gun to say, no, it's not, because remember, as Stephen Covey once said, most people listen to respond, they don't listen to understand. This is where creativity can take advantage of, well, logical thinkers. So if you're looking at anything from the Luigi Mangiano case all the way to anything else, remember the law is a very logical thing. So if they can remove certain things and put logic in its place, it would make logical sense that certain things can occur without creativity being present, because most of the people, well, let's face it, are black and white, right? I mean, what are the color of the suits that they wear in there? They're normally formal suits, black suit, white T-shirt with a tie, so on and so forth. The judge who presides over the whole jury is wearing a black gown with a white collar, so on and so forth, etc. And then, of course, they listen to the stories from the plaintiff and the defendant. And without certain pieces being involved or introduced, well, you can beat the law with logic, because that's exactly how the law is intended and designed and structured. It doesn't have or leave room for creativity. So when you introduce it, this is where you get high level criminal minds, so on and so forth, because the creativity leaves in logic, just like when a liar leaves in a part of the truth to make you believe it even more, because when you go check it out, well, the truth is still there, but there's certain things that might have changed. Being that creativity is something that is not very logical, you can see why being creative is such a skill. Think of a magician, or think of an entertainer, so on and so forth. It's on the art side, right? Or not on the scientific side for the very logical people who study things like doctors, psychologists, and things like that. And in marketing, we combine both creativity and logic, because remember, people buy with emotion first and justify with logic later. Honey, why did you spend so much when you went to Target? So on and so forth. Oh, it was just because this was speaking to me. Yeah, but oh, I was able to save more if I bought more, so on and so forth. And that logic is broken. It's a false fallacy, but you justify the emotional purchase with logic later, so that you don't feel bad about the decision that was made, i.e., the purchase, etc. And marketers understand this, and well, attorneys understand this as well, right? If you tell the right story to the jury, or you tell the right story in the media, this is why they have media training, so on and so forth, you're able to see and give little clues and indications to people, especially if you're a master of human behavior, how someone is supposed to be presented, how someone should speak, how they should walk, how they should talk, how their haircut should be, so on and so forth. And all these little small intricacies, these little millimeter shifts, as they say, speak non-verbally to the human behavior that is observing them. So you have to remember that if you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what you're saying and you're attempting, at least rehearse it first, which I'm sure they do, because that's what's the purpose of a mock trial within law. Now, remember, I'm only using law because it's a logical thing. However, within other things, you have a rough draft in, when you're studying literature and you have to write a paper, and then you have the final copy. So everything has to be rehearsed before uh, the final case or the final product is delivered. And the same thing happens in marketing. So If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it must be one, right? Wrong. See, the world I come from, remember, I have 20 years in magic, chess, and martial arts. Now, what this taught me was that not only did I have to think multiple moves ahead, but I also had to reverse engineer how those tactics were going to play out, but then add creativity. And that's where the magic comes involved and into place, right? Because, well, let's face it, chess, you think a lot of moves ahead, but it's all black and white. The pieces are right there. In magic, you do the same thing, but now you're doing it on a different scale. If I were to wipe the board of all the pieces and then ask you to keep track of the game, it would be a lot more difficult because in magic, you do things with things that are unseen and you practice the unseen for hours so that it could go unseen and things could look amazing and believable as it goes on. This is the same thing that applies to chess. And then, of course, with any adjustments or adaptations, this is where martial arts has to come into place. You have to look at it as a play, so on and so forth. Or if you're play fighting, so on and so forth, you can check your emotions at the door, and now you're more calm in the situation. So, therefore, you don't do things emotionally. You do things based on logic and the situation at hand. So, it makes you very agile. So, this is how I apply certain things to different strategies, not only just in marketing, but in life and in business as well. And most people will see someone and they say, well, he walks like a cop, acts like a cop. I am definitely suspicious of this person. He must be a cop. But the thing is that there's certain things. What about the haircuts? What about the words that they use? What about the terminology? How do they act when they're amongst each other? And how do they act when they're out in public? Now, if you go undercover, you're going to have to go ahead and know all these things because any small thing that is out of place that doesn't look like the culture in which you're trying to go into will get pointed out very quickly and they'll say, ooh, that person's not who they're saying that they are, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? If you got any value out of this video so far, go ahead and smash that like button. This is the last lesson of logic within class as we move towards art. And I'm going to go ahead and get more in depth into, well, let's just say the intro class for, or I should say the intro lesson for art is, well, when creativity and logic have babies, it creates art and science. So I'm excited for that one. But once again, if you found anything interesting in this video, if you got any value, please go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button. This is for philosophical thinkers, people that are, maybe studying psychology, sociology, human behavior, thinking outside of the box mentality and how to think better, right? So let's continue. Using your own psychology against you. This is now when we as marketers call demographics and psychographics in the business world, or when we gather what's known as analytics or business intelligence. This is also something that we utilize because now that we know who you are, we grouped you with a certain segment of individuals of a certain age. We have the psychology that they have and the behaviors that they mimic online and what they're interested in. When I go to target people to show them advertisements, it has a better chance of being successful if the creative part, the pictures, the videos, and the words match to the person's psychology in which that I'm showing the advertisement to. The same thing applies in business, the same thing applies in law and everything else. Remember, presentation is 9/10 of the law. So if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. If it looks like a criminal and acts like a criminal, it must be one, right? And this is where people's minds just start jumping the gun because they think they know the next step, like the person that watches the movie but thinks that they know the end of the movie when they haven't seen it to begin with. So, especially in the criminal world, and I only speak on this because during my time in the military, I taught people how to move ammunitions and things that go boom from point A to point B without being seen. So, you have to understand human psychology in order to do that because, well, let's take the Luigi Maggiano case, so on and so forth. I mean, yeah, he could have been a curly-haired redhead dude that was, trying to push up on somebody, whatever the case may be, or he could be a brunette. It really doesn't matter. The question is, how are the people going to receive him. And as you have seen from social media posts, everybody's like, ooh, he's attractive. Ooh, he's this. Ooh, he's that. Sex sells. Media knows that. And a lot of other people understand this as well. So if you're able to tweak and play with false fallacies and psychology and cognitive biases and give him the false perception that he's going to be safe when he goes into jail, then he's going to look calm. He's going to be still, so on and so forth. He hasn't been rattled, so therefore, by which he won't be able to show proper mannerisms in front of the jury because he knows he's going to be taken care of. That's insider knowledge that is between his attorney, himself, whoever did the media training and got him to look a certain way before he carried out the act, so on and so forth. Now, if you were able to rattle the cage, that would be something different. And therefore, it would reveal certain characteristics and things that, well, would get him to emulate either his psychology, because, well, let's face it, if you take a life, there's a part of you that might be a little off, so on and so forth. And then, of course, if you're planning that much, you have Machiavellian tendencies, and this is part of the dark triad, right? So you have psychopathy, you have Machiavellianism, and then you have psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism, right? Those are pretty much the big three. Well, if he wanted attention and things like that, I mean, think about it. He did it in front of a camera, in front of the location, engraved bullets, so on and so forth. So there was definitely a message there, but what? Did he think he was untouchable? Or did he have someone make him think that he was untouchable? Hence the behavior and the way he's acting as such. So this is ways to use people's psychology against them in an offensive way or a defensive way, whether it's for court, whether it's presenting on the media, whether it's doing advertisements for business. Right? What if the truth is a lie and the lie is the truth? Well, let's talk about it. In magic, you say, oh, well, magic doesn't exist. Magic's not real. And if you saw another video that I posted on how, well, there's certain things that are defined by science in our world that is indistinguishable from magic because you don't have an understanding of it. And what I mean by that is if you were to see these UFOs and so on and so forth, or UAPs and all this stuff that they're talking about, to you it looks like magic and it looks like a lie. It can't be real. But what if the lie was the truth and we had that technology? What would that do for the healthcare system? What would that do for the power grid? What would that do for technology if we had advanced technologies as such? And if that is something that's available, why aren't they using it? But people don't ask these questions because negativity weighs more. So they like to look at the negative first because they're willing to jump the gun because that's normally what society has shown them. Anybody who's come from a traumatic background normally looks at the negative first and treats certain individuals as though they are black sheep when they are not, so on and so forth. Because sometimes the lie is the truth and the truth is the lie. You know, there was a saying in the TV show Suits, sometimes good guys have to do bad things so that sometimes good guys have to do bad things so that the bad guys pay. So that's when you go undercover, but it was a whole thing within Suits with attorneys and law enforcement and everything like that. And it was to get someone to confess. The only way you could get someone to confess is, well, through a variety of tactics. However, if you're not able to pull that off and do the bad things to make the bad guys pay, you might as well be a nice guy and leave the rest to the good guys. So, how do great people lie in life? Well, in life, you have to mix in part of the truth in order to get away with a lie. And this is how great liars actually lie in life. They want to mix the truth in with a little bit of a lie. So everything could be the same. And then they have a Freudian slip, like someone I knew, and they were like, oh, I'm the best they ever trained. No, you're not. So on and so forth. I heard that. No, you're not. So on and so forth. Or this, that, and the third. Oh, they don't know anything, this, that, and the third. Yes, they do. You don't know what you're referring to. Yes, they do. And these are the subtle intricacies and the subtle, minute things that I pick up on as I went on through life, because as I said, with magic, we practice the unseen. And just like chess, we practice so that we can plan multiple moves ahead. And while we're performing, we don't have to think about anything else because we thought of all the stuff that could go wrong. Remember, people only know what you tell them. So what is the media telling you? How do you confuse someone? So this is great. If you ever studied mentalism or magic or things like that, the way you would confuse someone is to get them to believe one thing or draw attention to a person, an individual, so on and so forth, misdirection. And then, of course, you would normally have a group effort. So you would have multiple people in on this endeavor. And what do I mean by that? Maybe you have multiple people talking in a room, saying keywords within a conversation to trigger someone's brain. Maybe you have somebody who's great at psychology that knows how to do rapid induction at a gas station, so on and so forth, etc. Maybe you have a variety of ways to take advantage of someone's alpha or theta states while they're induced with narcotics or whatever. Think MK Ultra or things like that, or whatever thing you want to talk about, but to take advantage of the alpha and theta waves and the states that people are in when those drugs are induced into their body and what you can do with them. Now, once you start getting onto this level, this is where you're in trouble, or the person that's being sought after is in trouble, so on and so forth, because now you have really hard tactics that are coming at them that are going to be difficult to explain in the future, and it's just going to make them sound crazy. So it's either they're crazy or the tactics do work and they have been done, but nobody's, the only thing I've been told is that there's no such thing as a stupid question. So if you have a question, please leave it down below, because I would love to go into more in depth with this now that I have permission to start talking about certain things. So when you want to expose the truth, you have to allow the manipulation of others to kind of tell you what they want you to do, where they want you to go, and what their intentions are. So yes, go with the flow, as they say. And if you ever studied hypnosis, the only way hypnosis works is if you want it to work. You have to release or let go, and you have to allow the other person to give you instruction, to guide you, to break into that mental barrier. Some people are very hesitant, and so they build up these psychological walls and barriers so that they are trying to catch the hypnotist versus trying to be hypnotized. If you've ever been to a Renaissance fair, you've seen some of these guys do hypnosis on people, and you could see the ones that are willing and the other ones that start giggling because they're trying to catch the hypnotist or the magician or the performer on stage doing whatever effect that they're doing, and they have so many questions they're not able to be hypnotized because they're trying to catch something that they were never meant to catch to begin with. So why do those tactics work with those that have a logical mind? This is easy. The reason why a lot of these tactics work with people who have a logical mind, well, for one, most people are righties, and the right hand correlates to the left side of the brain, which is the analytical, logical side of the brain. The left hand goes to the right side, which is more creativity, so on and so forth. So if you're ambidextrous, you can pretty much use both sides of the brain. However, because most people are logical, they relied on textbooks, what they learned in school, what the superiors in the uniforms, so on and so forth, told them, and they've been structured psychologically to, if it walks like a duck, act like a duck, I need to get in line. So if the doctor comes out in a white coat, or if a police officer comes in uniform and says something, you have to submit to authority. That's just the way you've been socially groomed. Now, it's one thing to see it there, because if you were to see that same individual in regular clothes without their credentials, and they were genuinely either trying to help or intervene because there was something wrong going on, you would be sadly misconstrued, because your logic says, well, this doesn't look like a duck. It doesn't walk like a duck. It doesn't talk like one. So how can I believe that this is true? So this is where the logical people fall into this fallacy, and the creative people, well, they laugh because they understand art. And what is magic but art, right? It's a performance art. Let's just say that. And then, of course, moving forward, people need proof, as logical people do, unlike artists who use creativity and logic to understand. Scientists are different since they are mad, like mad scientists. They keep pushing the envelope without testing things on themselves first, similar to law enforcement. So anybody who served in law enforcement knows that when you get a taser gun, so on and so forth, or anything else, they test it on you so that you know exactly what you're putting someone else through. If you're dealing with doctors, 9 times out of 10, these doctors are playing scientists, especially in the mental health space, and they've never taken the drugs that they're giving you. They've only seen what happens when they they give it to lab rats, and well, they're tested studies on humans, and then of course eventually humans, but then they manage to, in the commercials, you ever notice they speed through all the side effects that come along with everything? But it's okay, you should trust them because they have credentials and they never taken it before. That's like giving somebody a taser gun, not showing them the pain that it causes somebody else, and then expecting them to know when to stop, so on and so forth, when they're using the taser gun on somebody else before it takes a life. This is where there's a fine line, and they don't understand that fine line. This is where other people have to step in and say, whoa, 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 you're going too far. There was a psychological study on a psychiatrist that wanted to see who was the most psychopathy or had the most psychopathy traits amongst the dark triads with different criminals and people alike. Well, he put a sample out to everything. He pulled a sample of multiple different people, including himself. And he found one individual that was completely out of their mind that showed all the right signs of psychopathy. Do you know who the person was? It was the psychiatrist conducting the test, right? This goes to show that it's very difficult to understand, is this person really out of their mind, or do they know what they're doing? Many of you have seen the TV show House, where they thought he was out of his mind, but after time and time again, he ended up showing that he knew what he was doing. Most doctors, however, don't even know the meaning of the symbol that's on their wall, yet they represent it all the time. And when you look at the World Health Organization, they have a different symbol that's used on ambulances, which is called the Asclepius, because it's a true symbol of health. Whereas the other one, which would be the Scepter of Hermes, talks about how snakes, are, well, the people of it, represents knowledge. And then of course the staff and the mighty rod, iron rod or staff in the middle, so on and so forth. So you have the masculine and the female snake that both have knowledge, so on and so forth. You also have the good and the bad side that both have knowledge, because remember, just like fentanyl is used in the hospital, fentanyl is also sold on the street. The only difference is one pays taxes and the other one doesn't. One says that it's for medical purposes, the other one is mainly for entertainment purposes only. However, it's harming people. So think about that for a second and chew on it before you tend to go a little bit further and say that doctors know everything, or some person in uniform that has credentials know everything. Maybe people that couldn't afford it, or maybe people that don't have the time to do certain things because of resources or whatever, may have the knowledge, but you don't appreciate their knowledge because they don't have the credentials. It's a catch-22. You either have the experience, the credentials, or you have both. And 9 times out of 10, people are looking for both. This is because most people are logical. If you ask them what hand they write with, they'll probably tell you that they're a righty. So that already instills that they're working with a logical, analytical brain. If you tell them to put the pen in the other hand, their handwriting is not going to look so good, but it's forcing them to become creative and forcing plasticity to develop within the brain. So if you were to think about this, science in our day and age, technology in general, is art/magic that can be explained. Anything outside of that would be unbelievable, right? So because here's the thing with science, art is one thing that can't always be explained. Not everybody likes art, not everybody could paint or draw or sketch. But when it comes to science, everyone can do it. Oh, 2 plus 2 equals 4, 1 plus 1 equals 2. It's very logical. The moment you introduce the fact that 1 plus 1 could equal 3, they're going to argue the fact without questioning first, because most people want to respond. Once you introduce the fact that, yes, if a man and female got together and had a baby, 1 plus 1 would equal 3, would it not? So this is where the logical people have to slow down, because they're very quick to respond and very slow to question, because they think they know something because it's falling within line, right? And this is what's known as false fallacies and the cognitive biases that we take advantage of within things like marketing, advertising, the law enforcement, law in general, so on and so forth. A false fallacy would be, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it must be a duck. Just because a dollar bill or $100 bill looks and functions as the same thing, it may be a counterfeit. so on and so forth, but you don't know until you actually test it. But because you're logical, you just look over it unless you're suspicious, unless you have reason to question, unless the person that gave you the dollar bill that has a background in magic, so on and so forth, was known for messing with and tampering with currencies. So you're always questioning that deceptive side to see if it's the truth. And that's the difference between logic and creative before they come together to create art and science. Art would be magic, science would be rubbing alcohol cleans wounds, right? Yes, we know that rubbing alcohol cleans wounds, and it's been proven over and over again. But if I said you could drink some cayenne pepper and that'll lower your blood pressure, that's never been pushed out before, and it could help you lose weight, amongst other things. Most people don't understand that because most people aren't told. The average individual is not, how do I say this, unintelligent, they're just uninformed. The moment they become informed of something, this is why lying is so bad. Once they become informed of something, you betrayed their trust. So even if you cheated in a relationship, if you lied about it, it weighs heavier than the person that told the truth. That's why it's always easier just to come clean. I'm notorious for this because I remember when I was younger, they would ask me, "Hey, Michael, did you do this?" And I would just say, "Yes, I did it," so on and so forth. I even remember in Catholic school, I would take the blame for some of my friends just so that we could get on with the day because the teacher was trying to figure out who to punish for whatever crime. And I'm like, just say it was me. Well, did you do it? No, but you need to punish somebody, etc. They're not going to say anything. I'm willing to take the punishment, whatever it may be, so on and so forth. Can we continue on with the day because this is just retarded? And I remember those days. I remember getting in trouble in class because I used to solve the hard problems first because they were worth more points, and I ran out of time and I wasn't able to finish my exams. And the teachers would always say, you know, if you would have knocked out the smaller problems first, maybe you would have had a chance of getting a better grade. And I said, why is that when the hard problems are the ones that pay more points? Or in life, the hard problems are what you actually get paid a lot for. So why not focus on that instead of these simple things? If you want a job, go to McDonald's, you can flip a burger. You get paid in proportion to the size of the problem that you solve. If you're not useful in certain areas, you're not going to get the large salary because you're not of value in that area. And when I say value, I'm not talking about credentials, certificates, and things like that. What do you know? How fast can you apply it? And can you do the job in an efficient manner? Now, most people would say, yeah, so on and so forth, until they get put in that seat. I know people that would say yes to one thing, and then when they get put in the seat, they don't know exactly what they're doing because a lot of people say sweet nothings to make the logical brain, well, say yes. And you can see this within the sales departments. Or if you ever worked into a store, you quickly know that when a salesperson comes up to you and says, hello, can I help you? You say, no, I'm good, because you don't want the expectation to be that I'm going to buy something, so that they hover around you, so on and so forth, with the gaze of, ooh, I could get this person to buy something from me and I can make money. Same thing with car dealerships, so on and so forth. I think this is funny because I think, if you realize this, if you look at spirituality in different spiritual books, this is why some people call the Jesus a fool and spirituality dumb, because people want PC, power and control, right? If you don't have one, you want the other. If you don't have power, you want control. If you don't have control, you want power. And most people want both, right? And the funny thing is that with Buddhism, with Buddha, so on and so forth, they never strived for power or control, even though that they had it. Even George Washington, who was the first president of the United States, did not want to be president. He did not want to do anything anymore because his time was done. Other people forced him. So it's normally, how do I say this? They say that people that don't want power and control are normally the ones that receive it. The ones that do want power and control will normally do anything to achieve it. And that's where you get the Machiavellian traits, because that's where they become a little bit, how do I say this? Like a Slytherin, so on and so forth, if you study Harry Potter, because most people don't understand that the four houses in Harry Potter are similar to the disc profile personality types that people normally take when they go get a job, which is the D, I, S, and C, which would probably be like driver, influencer, social, and then complacent. if I remember correctly, or the PACE system that's by Tai Lopez. Now, when we're getting into logic and things like that, some people will argue certain things until they're informed. So let's inform you of a couple things. AI just made a new update. Now, what is the new update? Well, I'm going to tell you this. Greed rules the world, because when AI came out and it had access to the internet, it gave people the ability to look at, well, public knowledge information on finances, especially stocks, to see how do I say this, so that you can see past behaviors of the stock market. Now, the reason why you would want to do this is if you are going to invest in a stock, you would want to see certain things on how it performed in the past, roughly every 3 to 5 years. And that would put us in the range of, well, COVID-19, so on and so forth. So how did it survive a pandemic? How did it do? What was the stock rate? How much did it increase? So on and so forth. And if you knew that this stock did well within the last 3 to 5 years, and because history likes to repeat itself, you were able to make a better guess when it came to picking stocks, options, or hedging, so on and so forth. Well, after some time, lo and behold, both Google, ChatGPT, and all these AI platforms removed that feature because, well, it was being used for free, and it was very beneficial because you could say something like, I want you to do market research on the top 5 stocks that are under a $20 price point that did over 300% in the last 3 to 5 years. Please be thorough, specific, use bullet points, and be detailed. And it would give you the top stocks that did well within certain fields, as well as if it had an option chain attached to it, so on and so forth. And you can make a lot of money doing this. Well, they took it away and now they turned it into a profit center for themselves, and they sold it. And that technology is being used by big companies like BlackRock and Wells Fargo and all these other companies, so on and so forth. Now, let me ask you a question. If you make below $100,000 a year, do you think that that was a good logical move for the average individual that's trying to make it with more than, what, 25% inflation? We have 32% or 36% in taxes being taken out of our checks. So now you're paying, what, 50 something percent, 56%, let's just say that 50% of your check is going to taxes or inflation and things like that. And you're trying just to carve out a small piece of heaven for yourself, but you can't do that anymore because the big boys jumped in and said, whoa, 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 if we let them have this, they'll start making money, they'll become independent, and they won't work for us. Now, this is where I come in, and, so on and so forth, and I tend to help as much as I can before these things get taken away. And that's the purpose of, well, all the videos that I'm putting online. So granted, I do jump around. Class is, remember, creativity, logic, art, science, and spirituality, and how it all comes together. So I'm going to be talking in different subjects and areas, but showing you the connections along the way. Now, other content that I put out there revolves around business, life, and marketing, right? So when it comes to business, marketing, and life, you have to realize that, yes, business matters in life. Why? Because everything is a transaction or a negotiation, whether it's a relationship or it's a business deal, so on and so forth. There's always a transaction being made. So why not think or learn how to make better transactions instead of just different ones? So let's think about this. Moving forward, remember, there are 2 sides and the middle is where I play. Remember, there's his side, her side, and the truth, or his and hers, whatever the case may be. But there's always the truth, and I play in the gray, as they say, or in the middle. You ever notice a referee, they wear the black and white stripes? Well, if you were to back that up a little bit, you realize there's multiple referees, and sometimes they have to pull the camera crew out, so on and so forth, because something in the gray is not settling on one or another side. So they have to do a deeper review. And that's where I like to play because, well, that's where the magic actually happens. So is it logical to work as a team? Because if you just said yes, that it's illogical to work as a team, then you should not get upset when those that do win. What do I mean by this? Well, most people say, oh, I have your back, I have this, until something happens, someone tells them the wrong thing, and then they screw you over. I went through this myself with one of my old best friends, somebody told him a piece of information, and then all of a sudden he decided to use that information against me, so on and so forth. He turned a lot of people against me. It was very bad, but I got to see people's true colors as far as who are they willing to trust, who they're going to trust, and especially for the fact that I've known them for so many years, I actually now know who I can and cannot trust, because either they took someone else's word for granted and they never opened up their mouth to question, or they just took it because that was the authority figure that said this, that, and the third, and this is what you can say, what you can't say, and then they played stupid later on. So I think it was really messed up. However, I got to learn a lot of things along the way, and I can learn who can I trust when I tell people certain things of when it comes to information, because at the end of the day, especially if you're in the finance department or invest into investing or in business or in any field like business intelligence, you would say things like information is the most valuable form of currency. You don't believe me? Ask Nancy Pelosi and look at all her stock trades, so on and so forth. Moving forward, um, so the question I will leave you with in this last lesson, and yes, this is the last lesson to class, so I hope you take it in well. Not last lesson to class, last lesson in logic of class. So I hope you take this with you well. Is it logical to believe in something to keep yourself alive at times? Because remember, this is everything and how it's all connected, but we haven't gotten to spirituality yet. So I want you to think about this. If you were in a situation and you knew that thinking or saying an affirmation or doing something could keep you alive, right? Is it logical to believe in that thing? Take that as your homework. Now, moving forward, let's talk about the number 19 and the connections that it has. And I'm going to now start opening up the aperture so that we start talking about not just, well, what correlates to those in the United States, but a little bit around the world. So, in mathematics, 19 is a prime number and is only divisible by 1. So that's pretty interesting, kind of, sort of. Then you have the centered hexagonal number. It represents a centered pattern in geometry. In religion and spirituality, the Quran is structured with mathematical patterns around the number 19. The Baha'i faith is the calendar consists of 19 months and 19 days, reflecting unity and divine order. In Christianity and the Bible, numerology, 19 symbolizes faith and God's perfect judgment. Now, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but let's just say things are going a little bit crazy right now. When it comes to astronomy, there is a period of 19 years, which is significant in the lunar calendar, with certain things aligning. Now, I don't know if you guys kept up on the news, but January 21st, the planets will align, which is going to be an amazing thing since it only happens every but so much time. Remember the movie, what is it, Tomb Raider with Lara Croft, who by far is amazing at almost anything she does because she studies a lot and she does her research because Laura's awesome. You know, she studied the planetary alignments and things like that, and she was very into it, and she had the knowledge of the esoteric arts among her, so on and so forth. So she was able to perform better than others in the field. Moving on to science, the atomic number 19 attaches itself to potassium, which is a vital element in biological functions. This is how you have sodium balance. This is how you prevent people from cramping, so on and so forth, etc. And then, of course, you guys remember COVID-19, right? Refers to the coronavirus, the name that changed because people thought that the Corona beer was giving people the virus back in 2019. Think that's funny. And then, of course, marking a significant global health. Well, remember, when it comes to pattern recognition, something always happens every 10 to 20 years, roughly 19 when it comes to the lunar cycles and things like that, or lunar years, sorry, when it comes to calendars, when I mentioned it earlier. So let's just put 2 and 2 together there. In sacred geometry, some interpretations link 19 to the Fibonacci sequence and natural harmony. Now let's get into some other parts of the world. When it comes to historical events, let's talk about Germany. World War II, the year 1919, marked signing the Treaty of Versailles, which imposed severe conditions on Germany after World War I and significantly shaped the country's modern history. Then we have the Republic. The German Weimar Constitution was adopted in 1919, establishing a democratic government after the monarchy fell. The 19th Bundestag, I think it's pronounced, so on and so forth. The 19th session of the German Bundestag between 2017 and 2021 was notable for political developments, including the coalition challenges and discussion on key reforms. Then, of course, we have the VAT tax, right? The value added tax, which is at a standard rate of 19% for Germany, so on and so forth. When it comes to geography and postal codes, well, regions in Germany begin with the number 19, particularly are in Mecklenburg, Western Pomerania, reflecting the regional connection to the number 19. In global events, let's talk about 19th Amendments, right? Or the 19th Amendment. Several nations have a notable 19th Amendment in their constitution, often linked to the significant societal changes, such as the 19th Amendment granting women's suffrage, so on and so forth. So let's go a little bit further into technology now. When it comes to encryption and cryptography, the properties of 19 as a prime number make it useful in generating secure keys. So if you ever worked in a security building, if you ever worked where they printed money, if you ever worked where you needed some type of clearance, you had a 19-digit key code or something along those lines, so on and so forth, to protect access to certain areas. If you were a data analyst or in data analysis, patterns involving the number 19 appear in algorithms used for, well, let's face it, machine learning and predictive models, which are being readily used today when it comes to AI and large language models, or LLMs as they are known today. Corruption in ethics studies, symbol of judgment. The number 19 is also referenced in studies of ethical systems as a balance between individual accountability, so on and so forth, and collective responsibility. It represents dual forces at play in societal structures. In other words, well, extreme ownership or something along those lines. But I'm sure that there's more ways that the number 19 not only connects, but the other stuff that I referred to in this video and how it all connects to other parts of not just the United States, but the rest of the world. Especially in the times that we're in, I don't think that things are going in a great direction, but well, in order to see the Renaissance come, you have to understand what came before the Renaissance. And it was a lot of bad stuff that happened before the Golden Age. And because history repeats itself, it's very easy to see these things happening in media because people are on a constant loop based upon everything around them. So, this has been lesson 19 of class. I know this one was pretty long. I know most of you are used to the short 20, 30-minute ones, but I had to go in depth in this one. And I'm going to let you know now, when we get to art and science, it's going to get so fun and interesting. I'm going to be incorporating magic. I'm going to be incorporating art. You might see the whiteboard come back out again just because I got to do some designs for you guys, just to make some more connections. Because some people, you may be able to draw a stick figure, but you're still trying to figure out the end of the movie. And that's the thing. The creative part is what you have to focus on, just like misdirection. Or as Tupac would say, all eyes on me. Well, if all eyes are on me, whose eyes are on everybody else? So think about that. Anyways, till next time, my friends, don't forget to follow me, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video. So take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.